Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and if you like this video, please give me a like below. That'll be really helpful. And if you'd like to see any more content, think about subscribing. Now, I'm going to be looking at this Green Stuff World Wet Palette. So this is the XL, and XL over here, as you imagine, it means extra large. So you can see how big this particular box is in front of me. It is a huge wet palette, and a big wet palette is not very common. Most of the time they're about half the size, and a big one is really handy for mixing all your different tones, and particularly those that do a lot of wargaming, where you do use quite a lot of different colors. The extra space is really useful. Okay, so you can see there, that's the thickness of it. And then I'm going to quickly open it up. There's the back, a little bit of info, and that's showing you all the different layers of a wet palette. And we'll have a look inside. Okay, actually, let's look at the front of the box first. Where am I going? Right there. All right, so you've got the casing for the wet palette right there. It's got a rubber band or a elastic band included to hold the two sides together. Over here you see the base plate with the sponge and the sheet. And then we've got the contents here. There's 2 foams included for the water. And then there's 50 sheets of paper. And then the elastic band. Okay, let's open this up, have a closer look at everything. I really like this, how big it is, because you've probably seen me build a wet palette before. Now, if you haven't, you'll be able to search for that on our YouTube channel. Now, here's the palette itself. So, you have very sturdy plastic, 2 sides. You've got the light grey, and then also, well, close to white. It's like a dirty white. Now, it doesn't matter which side you place this, it's got these little feet, you can see here, on both sides. The only difference really is, when I open this up, let's see, so these are a tight fit. I'm going to open it like this, just so you can see the gap, but usually you wouldn't be doing this because all the insides will be coming out everywhere. But you can see here, as I open it up, there is this quite large lip, which is molded into the lighter color, and that is overhung with this one. So either way, you can use this as a lid or this as a lid. So when I place it down here, a little instruction manual to tell you about how to set up your palette and why you use a palette and what's not good on palette. Multi-languages. Okay, so here we go. So you can pick either one to be your lid or your base. It's totally up to you. The only difference is going to be the lip. Okay, so the lip adds a little bit of height. Most of the time it doesn't really matter. So. Personal preference. Okay, so here you can pick either side. Now, I was saying about the lip how much I like this because it's quite a deep lip. It's probably about 5 mil. The advantage being is when you put the lid on top, now I'll do it on sideways again just so you can see, press it together, it is quite a tight fit. And the great thing about that is it reduces the air going in. Okay, so if you just had these butt joining, you'll have an air gap. There's no air gap here. So the paint that you leave inside and all your mixes is going to last quite a long time. Okay, so usually when you're lifting it off, you probably go flat like this so your paint doesn't go everywhere. This will come off and then you can start working away. You can see how big this is. I mean, you see the size of my hands on there. And then what's also included is this packet here. These are the hydrofoams. Now the hydrofoam is basically the sponge which is used for absorbing the water. There's 2 sheets. Okay, so you've got 1 spare. And you can get these as additional extras as well. So it's in as a regular retail type packing there. So if they do go off, because sometimes if you forget, they can go moldy, easy to replace, and they're pre-cut to fit perfectly. Now, apart from the foam, you're also going to get the paper. Okay, so there's 50 sheets. Again, it's in the retail packing, and you've got the paper here. So when I build my wet palettes, I'll basically be using some kitchen paper as a sponge, and then I'll be using baking paper for the barrier paper. Now, this particular stuff is great because it's perfectly cut and it's perfectly flat. If you're using baking paper, it has a curve or a coil to it, which can be troublesome and doesn't sit flat. So this is quite versatile and very quick to use. Okay, so it's quite luxurious, so it's all totally flat. And 50 sheets will last you a long time, so it's 50 full sessions. And thinking that you could have a paint mix lasting a week or even longer in here, that's more than enough time. Okay, so that's the paper. And from there, we've got our little sealing rubber band. So it's fabric elastic, and that's just to hold these two together. So it's already tight, but once you put the band around it. So that's going to sit around here. You've got the recesses here to keep it in place. You'll be able to move it, put it on your shelf, and then you take it off, and then you'll be able to access your paint pretty quickly, just like this. And that's pretty much it. So if you'd like to learn what a wet palette is all about and how a wet palette works, I have quite a few tutorials on me using wet palettes in the painting process. There's one where I'm painting skin tones and such, and then there's another one where I'm actually building a wet palette from scratch, and they'll give you all the fundamentals. So just going through again, so here's the paper. Don't worry about running out of that stuff. You can always buy more pre-cut, or if you're in a hurry, you can always use baking paper as well. Just bear in mind that baking paper can vary from manufacturer to manufacturer, and you'll need to test ones that aren't too furry, because I have tried ones where they do have a lot of fiber, and the fiber ends up on your model and it looks quite ugly, so try that out. But if you use this stuff, it's very consistent. Other thing too to remember is the foams. So the foam itself, these foams will be carrying quite a lot of water. It is better to use distilled water, or you can get demineralized water from your supermarket as well. It's quite cheap and easy to come by. Just make sure that when you're not using your wet palette, they actually allow it to fully dry out, otherwise you can get mold and stuff growing on here. And the reason we use demineralized water and or distilled water is it's purer, so it should give you a better finish on your model, and also it shouldn't have all the impurities that can create mold and such. Either way, mold will grow on distilled water as well, so keep it dry when you're not using it, and you should be able to use it for a long time. Spare one in there included anyway, and if you need spares, they're available too. So there you go. That is my open box review, or yeah, just to show you what's included in the Green Stuff World Wet Palette XL, and these are great for large users of acrylic paints, particularly if you're building up an army where you do need some of your mixes lasting quite a long time. So that's it, Green Stuff World Wet Palette XL.